Good evening. Good to see people joining in. Hi Koel, Sandeep, Pratiksha, photography. Good evening everyone. So as some of you who are already following ENGN would have seen, this is our first session in a series that we plan to do, a series called Tune Your Engine. And I'm sure the title itself gives you an idea, because our bodies are this beautiful well-run engine that kind of drive us all day, all night. And the idea of doing this series over a period of time is to speak to experts who can help us tune our engines better so that we can all live a healthier, fitter life. My name is Megha Desai. I'm a co-founder of ENGN, and today we are going to be in conversation with sports nutritionist geethaghaliyavar. So I'm going to just wait for a minute before adding her on. And just for everybody who is joining in, listening while the session is on, if you all have any questions regarding nutrition, please do type in your questions, and I'm going to try my best to see and follow them and get our expert Gita to answer them, provided time permits. So please forgive us if we can't answer your questions within the time, but we'll definitely come back to it. Okay, so let's add Gita. Good evening, Gita.
Hi, Megha. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you sound perfect. Is my voice clear to you?
Yes, fabulous.
Okay, great. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us on ENGN. It's a pleasure to have you on board. And before I share and we get into a whole lot of questions that we have waiting for you to answer, for everybody who is joining, for everybody who's going to listen to later, I'd like to introduce Gita, because there's a lot to share about her experience. So for those who've been following us, you know that Gita is now part of the ENGN family. She's also the official nutritionist as part of the ENGN family. But more than that, she's also has experience of over 19 years in the field of nutrition. Gita, I have to read out a whole long list of qualifications, so I'm going to do that. So Gita has a PG diploma in sports nutrition from the International Olympics Committee. She's also a registered dietitian, and she's a certified diabetes educator. So there's a whole lot of knowledge and information that you can expect. In her career of over 19, 20 years now, she has mentored a whole range of athletes, from beginners to Olympic level athletes. And the idea of today's conversation, as ENGN, what ENGN stands for, is to encourage more and more girls to pursue their career in sports, and also for women in general and girls in general to take up fitness and a healthy lifestyle as part of their regular life, whether they intend to become a full-fledged sports person or not. But I think all of us have this in us to lead a healthier, fitter life. So today's conversation, as part of the series which we've called Tune Your Engine series, because like I was sharing earlier, Gita, that our bodies are these engines, right, that are driving us day in and day out, and it's our responsibility to kind of keep fine-tuning that engine as we go along every day. So today's topic, Gita, very specifically, I know we spoke and we both agreed with the ENGN team that let's start with something that is probably the most common question asked as far as girls are concerned, right? And our conversation today is about 5 nutrients that every girl should include in her diet. So my first question is, why is there a distinction between boys and girls? So why are we specifically saying 5 nutrients that girls should include in her diet. So is there a difference between boys and girls, first and foremost, from a nutrition perspective?
So firstly, a warm welcome and good evening to everybody. And thanks, ENGN and Megha, for having me not only on board and also starting this education series. And I also thank everybody who's joined us. And I saw Raj sir also. I don't know if he's still there. So I see even Ms. Veet. And thank you for all these stalwarts who are joining us this evening. And it's really humbling that, we have such senior guys also joining us. So thanks a bunch. And to start off, yes, I think females are different, and definitely physiologically there is definitely now we are understanding, and it's a great initiative that ENGN has taken on to encourage female athletes. And having said that, I think everybody ought to exercise. So this education process we're starting is not just for athletes alone, for everybody who is a girl here who needs to take care of her nourishment right early in life. So females are made different physiologically for the reason that the biological cycle of how we go through, childbearing, and also that we are governed unlike testosterone. So our hormones do change, in the few weeks. So now today we understand that one characteristic difference is that, yes, I think the ability to eat carbohydrates, that is rice, roti, is one aspect of it. But however, we are able to carb load equally as what a male could do. But the unique thing about girls is that we store more fat for the biological reason and the gender difference. But yes, the advantage here is we also are able to burn more fats. So all the girls out there who really shy from the good fats, in fact, coincidentally, in a counseling session, I just discovered alarmingly low vitamin D, and the girl is totally off all kinds of fats in her diet. Doesn't eat any oils and the good ghee and fats. So vitamin D itself is a fat soluble vitamin. So not just that it has very important functions, but to also understand that we are able to store fats and burn fats, so that gives us an advantage to also consume good fats in our diet. So that's important, and I think we need to educate, the audience out there that please do eat healthy and balanced meals, considering that we are able to burn more fats. Yes.
Okay, that's music to ears, I think, for everybody, because whether or not you're an athlete, the fact that we store more fats, but like you rightly said, we also have the ability to burn more fat, and therefore, the conversation that we have with ourselves needs to change, and probably we need to reframe the way we are talking about nutrition. So then, of course, the big question: what are these 5 magical nutrients, or 5 top nutrients according to you?
Okay. Thank you for making this easy for me. I was just going to say, is there one important nutrient then over the other? I'm sorry, as a dietitian, I think this will be a very difficult one. So I think I would like to go with clusters of nutrients that are important, and girls have certain important needs, particularly young teenage, or adolescent girls. All the bone formation and ossification happens up to 20 years of age. And also not to mention that sometimes boys are growing beyond 18, but sometimes girls are not. So I think the bone health is very crucial in these prime years of bone formation. And sometimes we know, of course, through anecdotal and through other, research data. In the poorer community, we've known that there is anemia, which is iron, iodine, and vitamin A. A lot of work has been done on this in the poorer community. But of course, today, by God's grace, the spending capacity has increased. And but the challenges are also different. So in clusters that I will talk of, I think I will go with the calcium first. And when I say calcium, I think the entire understanding of calcium with vitamin D. So it's not just milk. You don't need milk alone, though milk is the richest source of calcium. Absorption is 30% only. It's complicated. But to understand that you need higher or good optimal levels of vitamin D, which is not just for your bone. Today we know that vitamin D has an impact on your muscle mass, your maintaining or lowering your fat mass ability, from immunity to, from the way you feel blue. I mean, especially now we are going towards winter, though we are a tropical country, we don't face those issues. But vitamin D is a pandemic by itself. So calcium, vitamin D, definitely I think highly overlooked is vitamin K. And eat your green leafy vegetables. The easiest way to get that is, vitamin K is something that we don't talk about in this entire synergistic nutrient combination, because it's not just the obsession with milk. You don't really need to do dairy. You could do almonds. You can do soya products, cauliflower, broccoli, till, sesame seeds. We have a lot of whole bunch of Indian foods that you can, include in your diet. So calcium. Then I would like to talk about the second bunch is your iron. And I think understandable that the entire crux of your oxygen carrying capacity is iron and hemoglobin. So iron with B12. And alarmingly, for some reason, I have been seeing large cases of B12 deficiency, which is basically pernicious, not just iron based or iron deficient anemia, which is basically low hemoglobin or ferritin. And we do the whole works of the iron studies. So you correlate and see what's going on. And especially in vegetarians or vegans sometimes, there's a lot of influence these days about different types of diet. So we have to take care of, the B12 and again folacin, folic acid. So these all work together, and not to mention vitamin C. So it's nutrient interaction is very, what is the word?
It's complicated.
Yes. So that's the second, nutrient cluster I would like to emphasize. And then I think talking of micronutrients, zinc, selenium, and I think highly overlooked is also iodine. When we talk of metabolism, today we are seeing a lot of, everybody, I think the word here is the catchphrase, my metabolism. They will not understand science, but then, you don't need to do anything drastic, nothing extreme. So iodine is something, again, very crucial. And the mistake that I notice a lot of the, some of my clients, what they do is they use Himalayan salt, not understanding that if you're a vegetarian, the only source of iodine becomes your iodized salt, because seafood is a good source. But if you are a pescatarian and consume, seafood, or sometimes based on the soil, the iodine content varies. So that's a tricky one. So micronutrient deficiency can be seen in athletes, or sometimes if you are having poor food habits, you don't eat eat diet. In fact, coincidentally, it's the National Nutrition Week, and Poshan Ma, preventing diverse diet. I think that's also a bit a part of the theme. So zinc comes from pumpkin seeds, iodine is iodized salt, and always remember, add the salt at the end of your cooking, because otherwise the salt, when heated, can sublime. And also over time, if you leave the entire 1 kg of salt on the shelf, the iodine perishes gradually. So these are things we need to take care. And of course, the other one I said was selenium, Brazil nuts, and of course, non-vegetarian foods is easy to get some of these. So micronutrient is one bunch, and often talked about is protein. Recently, we've also seen how just increasing your protein intake can, help reverse your diabetes, or manage your blood sugars. So 2 days ago, there was a huge article on talking about the importance of protein. So I think growing girls also have a high need of protein intake. And I think as Indian diet, sometimes I'm a vegetarian, so I'm faced with this challenge. So planning protein intake as a part of a meal, I think, is sometimes what we overlook.
Okay. Oh my God, I wish I could also make notes while you were talking, to be honest, because there's just so much good information, just such important information that you shared. So, because the last point you mentioned about protein, Gita, this was also a question that came in from one of our audience members. So I'm first going to address that, and then like a whole lot of other questions that have been coming to the head. So, you mentioned about protein intake and how it is important. So I think there is a handle by the name of Starlight Coil who asks that when should protein intake begin regularly for girls? So at what age, I'm assuming, at what age should a girl start taking her protein regularly? And I'm just going to add one more part to this question is, does protein need to be part of every meal, or can we like restrict it to breakfast and then we are done? Or how do we do it? How do we plan it?
That's a very interesting question. I would have said the child has already started, suckling on the mom. So the protein starts at birth. So just that the mother's milk has very, very low content of protein. And that's the reason we don't give cows, generally any other milk, right? So the baby's kidneys are very fragile. So basically protein starts very early, including after weaning, after 6 months, we do exclusive breastfeeding. And then in all meals, we start, using protein in meals. And the question here, I'm glad you did not leave it open-ended, and you asked, would it be okay to consume protein in just one meal? And sometimes we see that. So I think I myself have been making a very conscious effort to look at my protein intake, and eating protein in one meal alone is not enough. If you are particularly into exercise, even if you are a recreational athlete and you're just, taking care of your fitness, I think protein, only for the reason that understanding the science of how protein works. So ideally, you would want to distribute about anywhere between 1 gram per kg body weight, meaning that, it's, I know that's why we want to keep it very simple, where the audience understand. So just to say that our target may be 10-15 grams of protein on an average, to say to eat 2 eggs gives you about 12 grams protein. Or if we say 80 to 100 grams of paneer gives us 50-gram protein. I think to keep it simple and understandable for a layman it's easier, rather than talking jargon and the science. So I think that's where, as dietitians, we come in to share that knowledge. So protein needs to be there in all meals, only for the reason the body cannot absorb large chunks of protein in a given time.
Okay. So can I just reiterate what you just shared? So you're saying 2 eggs give about 12 grams. Did I hear that correct? 12,
No,
12 grams?
approximation. Yeah.
Yeah, approximation. And then for vegetarians, pure vegetarians who don't even eat eggs, obviously paneer is one form of protein.
Yes, provided you take dairy.
Provided you take daily. Any other form of protein for vegetarians specifically? Because I know non-vegetarians have options.
So dairy is a good source because it is, complete protein, similar just like egg. But however, we want to focus on quality proteins. Having said that, even vegetarians can get decent amounts of protein, provided you are able to, eat in a pattern which is larger volume. For example, if you eat a katori of dal, it's 7 grams of protein. But however, it lacks methionine. And we also need basically complete proteins. One of the amino acids is missing, and like I always educate and speak about it often. Sorry, some of these lines may be repetitive, those who are listening. But yes, eating dal and rice, rajma and chawal, roti, and basically any combination of a cereal and grain, cereal grain with a pulse. So these give you better quality protein. Sprouting increases, quality of protein because anti-nutritional properties are lowered. So dals, nuts, soya-based products are excellent source. Soya is the only vegetarian form that has higher quality protein. So, and there again, you can look at the tempeh, fermented soy, tofu. So these become all right. To consume at least 2-3 times, or you don't want to overdo about more than 40-50 grams a day, ideally, especially for boys. Because boys have the male sexual hormone testosterone, the girls have estrogen, and typically soya milk, and we use phytoestrogens in menopause around that 45-50 years of age. So somebody who's doing healthy doesn't need to overdo anything. I think that's what I recommend.
Okay. And please don't worry about repeating, because, I think all of us today are subjected to so much, I wouldn't say knowledge, just information coming our way. So it's always helpful when a person of your level of experience, guides, because I've noticed that somebody who's had experience in the field will always kind of give, open, kind of guidance to say, because obviously no one rule fits all, right? Each of us, our bodies, one of us, our bodies are different. And so we need kind of different guidance. So please don't worry about repeating some of the things, because it's a good reminder for all of us. Okay, so I think you also shared, just one more level of question to the protein, because I know you shared a lot of items or food items rather, that one can include, especially as vegetarians in their diet. A specific question has come for Indian food options for protein intake during breakfast, since we're talking on meals.
So all of those options that I have mentioned can be included for breakfast in some way. For example, Indian breakfast, sometimes I'm from Bangalore and South India. So at least our breakfasts are predominantly sometimes rice-based. It could be even lemon rice to poha to idli, dosa, and all of these options. So you could make a conscious effort to just include some. I know that if you're a non-vegetarian, then it's easy to include chicken curry, gravies, and eggs, But yes, if you don't consume any of that, then if you want, like I know that in the north they make these chilas. I hear a lot of these, because remote work now, I hear these chilas. So you could make a paneer chila, so that way, or use, if it's a young kid, you could also use some cheese. So cheese is another good source of protein. And if you're making, say, upma or poha, there is a handful of sprouts you could add in that. So that way there is some amount of protein also going in, which actually brings in satiety. And it's satiating, meaning that if young girls are into aesthetic sports and they really have to watch their weight, Sometimes, because if you eat just a bowl of rice, you could actually eat a large bowl of 300, 400 grams of rice alone by itself. That's the reason we suggest please eat mixed meals. Ensure you add some protein, which gives you thermic effect, slows down digestion. Add a lot more, vegetables in it because the fiber delays digestion. So I think, typically and traditionally, our meals as Indian meals itself were very beautifully planned. Where there was a sense of they did not know the science, but they knew the basics of how to cook healthy
True.
meals at home. And
True.
also, I think what I like to tell these guys is please eat at home. Eat home cooked meals today. Meals have become so accessible and there's such a array of choice. I think they've spoiled us rotten that there is a temptation and processed food is unavoidable. So strike a balance between home cooked and how much processed food or outside food you're able to eat based on your goals.
Wow, absolutely. So true. So true. So, then coming to a question which is obviously all, again very girl specific, Geeta, and which is related to the menstrual cycle. And so obviously every month in a girl's life, once she reaches her menstruations, starts a menstruation cycle, each month we know is kind of into phases, right? So when you have your cycle on, the period before and after the cycle. So I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but could you share, throw some light on how to manage diet during the month for a girl?
So this is the again to talk about what happens just prior to menstruation. There is some carb craving, serotonin is lowered, so there is a tendency to eat a little more, and not to mention irritability because of these hormone changes. So there is some amount of bloating as well.
Right.
Thirst receptors are reduced because of the hormone change. So I think if you're looking at this, ensure that you make a conscious effort to drink water. Certain elements or nutrients like magnesium, omega-3, B6, these are all very good and you can take a supplement too. If your premenstrual syndrome or your PMS sometimes can be disturbed. And also after menarche, I do have sometimes this question coming up from young girls. Sometimes they have irregular menstruation and either it's delayed or it's early or sometimes they skip too. And that's fine. It's nothing alarming. I know that it's a red flag. We never want to, because estrogen is not just for bone health. It is just like how a testosterone is important for a male to increase muscle mass. So is estrogen for a lady. It takes care of your entire body composition and also your heart health. Unlike the men who are at the risk of heart disease. So that's a good thing. Menarche and once you start your menstruation. So prior to PMS, there are these, bloating issues and what I've just mentioned. During the menstruation, of course, there's a loss of blood because of, the bleeding. So then thereafter, and of course, eat light. Because there is also bloating, though we say you need to eat more carbohydrates, which is basically your rice, roti, dal, sabzi. I mean, not dal, sabzi, sorry. Dals also have carbohydrate, fruits, and there is an urge to eat a little more. Sometimes I hear a lot of sugar craving, and that's fine. What's more important is be flexible and do what is sustainable. Just because you eat a little more 1 or 2 days of those 30 days or 28 days cycle, it's not going to make a world of difference. So that's okay, and that's what is called carb cycling. So also to be able to eat intuitively in the way that if you suffer a lot from bloating and gas, which is sometimes also possible, just go easy. Just because you need to eat fiber, don't load up on that salad because fiber is difficult to digest and it makes bloating worse. And then they eat all the pulses, the chana, the gassy food, the sprouts, the salads, all of these in one shot. And you need to distribute fiber through the day and remember to drink your water. Otherwise, it's going to lead to severe discomfort. So it's okay to either skip that salad or eat a cooked vegetable which softens the fiber. So it's understanding what your body needs. And of course, every decade in your teenage to being a young adult to now that we are, lucky enough to step into our middle age, the body's metabolism changes. So you have to go with what your body's needs are, and that's fine. Focus on your iron intake, definitely, which I just talked about. The iron, the vitamin C, the B12. B12 is a big challenge in vegetarian meals too, because the only source of B12 is non-vegetarian food or dairy. And B12, again, absorption is very complicated. You need the stomach acid, which is basically nothing but your HCl. So acid is good because without that, your iron, calcium, magnesium, your B12, they're not absorbed. So, take care of your stomach and your gut health. And that is why we say eat a wide, as simple as it, the thumb rule, eat a wide variety of meals. Don't eat the same thing every day. It's not a
Right.
timetable, you know. So
Right.
B12 is extremely important for absorption of iron, stomach acid, intrinsic factor. That's what I was telling you. Pernicious anemia. Sometimes B12 can really make you very tired, fatigued. And if you're into fitness, you really have to take care of that. So iron and, taking care of your replenishing that lost, blood. So that can be helpful when you chalk out nutrients from these. So that the non-veg you can do liver, red meat. Before your menstruation, don't do red meat because they say it causes a bit of inflammation and it increases your prostaglandins, certain kind of hormone kind of a compound, and that can make the bleeding or the ischemia, the cutting off the blood supply, can the endometrium or the uterine lining can get thick. So don't eat inflammatory foods prior to menstruation. They say red meat and trans fats and coffee and excessive of that, so that you don't go into certain alcohol again. So those you want to definitely avoid prior, and once your menstruation is over, you can go back to normal eating.
Okay. Okay, so one phase of the month is normally otherwise we need to take care. So I'm just joking. So okay, so two points also that you mentioned, Geeta. One was about, obviously, since Engine also represents a lot of female athletes, and I think a few of them I could see, Anisha, who is a leading taekwondo athlete, Nityashi, who is a runner. I could see them joining in. So specifically now for a question related to girls who are training, much more intensively, because sports is part of what they do, and they are training for different sports of their field. So girls who are training intensively, than regular girls, what kind of okay, what three things should they keep in mind? And I know, again, the reason I'm saying three things is because, given the fact that they are girls, given that they are in the age group of maybe, 17, 18 to 24, 25, and because they are training so intensively, whether it's workouts or their own sport, what are some top three things that they should keep in mind?
Okay, like we always say, you need to fuel right. So remember that you need more food than a normal person. So it's okay to eat more. But that again depends on the training schedule and also the training cycle. Meaning, are you off season? Then you want to do strength training. Are you in peak season? You can't cut your rice roti. You have to eat more. Otherwise, you're going to be stalled. So remember to fuel right. And as I say, always remember to recover, which means again, not only taking care of your your meal, recovery meal, which is very high in carbohydrate and protein. And one important thing that I see is a challenge is adequate intake of fruit vegetables. Nobody need weigh your food. Sometimes I do see that other extreme, as given in the chart, they actually measure and weigh and do everything to the T. I think honestly, nobody did that in the past. So I think guidance, what we are able to do is stick to the guideline and also understanding the concept and the principle, right? So the takeaway message here is just remember to start exercising with adequate food, rehydrate, definitely hydration, electrolytes during workout, recover well, antioxidant intake, fruit, vegetable is very crucial. So, and then most importantly, your rejuvenation, meaning that you need to recover adequately, be it DOMS or be it any other inflammation induced that is because of exercise. You need to sleep well. You need to allow yourself enough rest days. So that this is one of the biggest challenges that I notice in my work, that sleep is highly deficit.
Mm. True. And I think sleep patterns also in today's times, at least in the urban cities, seems to be a challenge, right? Because I think most of us are hearing about the importance of sleep, which was never a question that, came up in conversation earlier, but because most of us, due to lifestyles, are struggling with good sleep, or, good amount of sleep and good quality of sleep, it's become,
And training schedule. Sometimes I notice that training happens so late in the evening, it really creeps into night time. And yes, and poor children are robbed of their childhood. I mean, it's intense. And then the school education, both legs are equally important. So they're juggling between education and sport. So I hear that, and not to mention the challenge of smartphones.
Yes, of course.
And then
Of
there's,
course.
yes, socializing and TV. So yeah, it's complicated again.
It's a whole lot of things. Um, okay, so Geeta, one of the other things that you also mentioned, that we are fortunate to come into our 40s, or our midlife. And I don't know your age, but I'm saying it, I'm speaking for myself now. So, while we've spoken, you've shared a lot of information about young girls and, in that, and girls who are training. Uh, I think one part of the health maintenance and kind of maintaining and building a healthier lifestyle also comes in this part of life, right? Which I'm calling 40 onwards. So whether I'm an athlete or not, as a woman, there are different phases again that start. Either perimenopause or some start kind of approaching their menopause. So what should this age group kind of keep in mind? And certain, if you could share some important information that we could keep in mind.
So the calorie needs obviously come down. An average girl may eat 2,000. Somebody who's aging and the metabolic rate dwindles about 1 to 2% every 10 years. So they need to just take care that, you're not just focusing on your rice and roti, or what we call the carbohydrates. What is important for them is to really get obsessed with protein. Because today we know so much research which is talking about sarcopenia, which is loss of muscle mass. So there is
Mm,
no argument about doing weight bearing exercise, and it's not just walking and cardio. That really doesn't help. So as you
okay.
age, ensure that you really have to take care of your muscles and your bones. I think
Mm,
this is really two important aspects of healthy aging. So sadly, I started weight bearing exercise very late in life, and for all those who are listening and who are fortunate enough to get this knowledge early, your bone health and also your muscle health, like remember that it is not what happens in your 40s. Like I told you, bone formation stops 18 to 20 years. And that's what you
oh,
carry for
wow.
the rest of your life. And if you don't have, forget the calcium. Everybody is obsessed about calcium. Nobody talks about vitamin D and and it's so complicated. Calcium, phosphorus, 2:1 ratio. You want to have the vitamin K. I was talking to you about all of that. Nobody understands the importance of maintaining optimal levels of vitamin D, because that is what drives. It's like a gatekeeper. That is what drives the
Mm,
calcium into your bones. So if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is weakening of these bones that we see, similarly loss of muscle mass, protein is not something that you eat in one meal, right? So you need
mm,
to be able to churn out that protein. So you can take protein anytime. You can take before workout, on rising, during workout may not be really needed unless and until the when you do intense exercise. What you really need is certain replenishing of certain glucose. It could be jaggery, honey. Like I always talk about it. You don't need anything fancy from a store bought electrolyte drink. You just need you need just some sugar. It could be your own homemade lemonade. Like I always tell everybody, please maintain a balance. Everything store bought is not necessary. A commercial
mm,
drink can be skipped unless and until it's an intense session. So you need to be sure of how you are taking care of your protein. So it could be also afterwards, it could be bedtime protein. And bedtime protein does not lead to weight gain at all. So on the contrary, it helps you maintain your amino acid pool. So those who have challenges with maintaining good quality protein in their meals, definitely, or for that matter, like athletes who have intense demand, and food alone can't meet. And honestly,
mm.
I have known of a badminton player who would eat like 2 blocks of chicken breast, just boiled chicken, and it
Wow.
broke my heart that he was so particular and disciplined about understanding his protein needs, but he overdid it. And how
Mm,
insipid is that? Food should be palatable, and
absolutely.
it's a very, I mean, that's what gives
It,
you joy. Food is,
yes.
yes, you don't need to be eating just boiled chicken for protein. There are dime a dozen ways of doing healthier cooking process. And another thing here is, don't grill the meat or don't deep fry and cook to very high temperature, because when you do that with non-veg, cancers are formed. And that's where your hydrocarbons and all the unhealthy things are formed. And air fryer, go easy with that. High temperatures with non-veg you want to avoid, just steaming, boiling. You could also grill it, but remember to marinate with acids like vinegar and other important, anything like marinate with acids can lower cancerous compounds. So I think these are important parts that we want to talk about and tell the larger audience of how they can not only focus on eating, but how to improve their absorption from these nutrients and embrace healthier cooking practices.
Okay. So weight exercises or weight bearing exercises for sure. And like you said, even though some of us may not have started earlier, it's never too late. So that needs to start like as of now, and that's important for especially for
Today.
women in this age. Yeah, it needs to start today, and and walking and cardio doesn't count. So I think that was important for everybody to understand, and not to kind of take away from those, but weight bearing has a very different impact, like you shared.
Yes,
You
it
all
can prevent sarcopenia, and I think that is extremely important because your muscles really are what is kind of taking care of not just your metabolism and everything else. So sorry. So there's sarcopenia and loss of muscle mass as you age.
Okay. Okay. So, and Geeta, one more question. I know when we were discussing, about this conversation today that we were going to have, you also mentioned, you touched upon the fact that you wanted to speak about uh, iodine and Himalayan salt. And, and I know what the conversation is, but I want you to share what is it about these two things that you wanted to speak about.
Right. So in the five important nutrients, as we started off, I already mentioned, iodized salt becomes the most important source of iodine, and that is what is important for your thyroid function. Iodine
Okay.
is what fuels your thyroid hormone, and thyroid is it's the governing gland, and that's what takes care of your well-being.
Mm,
It's like the king.
right.
So iodine is something we don't talk much about, and a lot of people think it's a craze today because Himalayan salt is all over the place.
Mm,
And they make a mistake that sometimes they don't understand the need. They may have hypothyroid, they may have, a lot of issues, but they don't understand the importance of iodine in the diet. We talk of
mm,
protein, we talk of many other important things, even magnesium. Today, magnesium is highly talked about, and people understand the importance as anti-stress mineral and how important it is for an athlete. But iodine is not, touched upon, and
right.
iodine is extremely crucial for your metabolic rate, for your overall health. And iodized salt is the only source if you are not taking care of your seafood intake. So Himalayan salt may marginally have certain minerals, marginally, some nutrients, some minerals as extra, but it doesn't contain iodine. And that is the reason that the government went all out and made iodized salt. That is, you need to
Mm,
add iodine into salt mandatory. And I already gave this tip. Remember that when you buy the iodized salt, don't leave that entire, 1 kg out into open air and, light, because the iodine dies and perishes over time. So remember to decant and remove small portion of it and leave it in a dark place.
oh,
And like
interesting.
you are looking, if you have thyroid hormone abnormality, or you want to take care of your iodine intake, remember that another tip here is when you cook the iodine to high temperature, sometimes again it is destroyed. So if you want to conserve the iodine, you may want to switch off your gas stove and sprinkle it in the end on top, and then blend it in.
So, and this obviously applies to everyday cooking at home, right? Especially in Indian homes, because most of our foods, like the sabzis and the dals or the curries, have salt. And so, even this small change of A, how you store your salt, and B, when you add it to your cooking can make a huge difference, right?
Right. And if you love your Himalayan salt, even if it costs 10 times more, please feel free to use that. But don't forget the iodized salt.
Ah, okay. Okay.
You can
That's very,
switch
very
between
interesting.
you can
That's
switch
very, that's
between these two.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a first for me to hear, and I must say this, and generally because I like reading and knowing about nutrition and fitness and health, I obviously follow and read quite a lot. But this is truly a first time that I'm hearing in such detail about iodine, and I'm so glad you shared it. So while you were speaking and while you were sharing, I think you touched upon two other foods that I feel are very kind of come under the scanner a lot of times. One is sugar, of course, and then what is a good substitute for sugar? Is jaggery really a substitute? Is it not a substitute? Are sweeteners really a substitute? Are they not substitute? So maybe we'll take sugar first, and then I'll come to the next controversial food.
Okay. So sugars can definitely be a part of a healthy diet. There is no need to cut sugar intake. But however, please remember that um, What is sugar? Sugar is just, in addition or extra that what you really need to eat. So any sweetener is a sweetener and the calories do come. They may be marginally or negligible amount, like 1 or 2 calories lesser, from honey to sugar to any of the sweetener. Like for example, palm jaggery or coconut sugar. Today is very popular. But the
Right.
only thing that it is lesser processed and it has got a lower glycemic index, meaning that it doesn't lead to sugar spike. Having said that, for somebody who really exercises or does intense sessions of over 45 minutes of exercise, when you are working out so hard, the sugar is the best form to replenish your glucose uptake. It's so instantaneously taken into your bloodstream. So everything is a context. There's nothing right, there's nothing wrong. You have to see what do you need. Having pointed that out, I have noticed sometimes even in athletes we have high blood sugars, which is the last 3 months blood sugar reading called glycosylated hemoglobin. So overdoing the sugar when not during the training and beyond the training time and just splurging a lot of processed food, cakes, cookies, chocolates, and people do that, because they are on such a restricted diet, pretty much in the competition cycle, and they
Right.
really need that treat because they go off some of these for the pre-competition competition cycle. It can be
Right.
quite intense and we take them off a whole lot of foods. And it is but natural that these children, or even young adults for that matter, even me, I like my sweets sometimes. And there is a sugar craving, right? Because we talked of PMS. You are just, before your menstruation, you have a urge. A lot of sugar cravings are here from ladies. So it is okay to eat. That's what I said. You need to just understand what are your medical concerns. Do you have health problems? Are you pre-diabetic? Are you suffering from obesity? Do you have triglycerides which are very high and have dyslipidemia or other challenges? Is there a huge medical history from you and your family? So everything depends on, we just cannot generalize. Sugars are, I think, highly, what is the word? They get a bad rap. It shouldn't be so. And we cannot avoid that. As long as you're able to, just moderate the intake. So
Right.
other sweeteners, be it jaggery, honey, palm jaggery, they all also have calories, just that they are lesser processed. On the contrary, brown sugar, what do? They use a bleaching agent and animal bones, right? Just to take out the smell. The processing of white sugar is maybe because it's commercialized, is just cheaper. So there's a cost to slightly lesser processed option, but nonetheless, sweetener is a sweetener. Simple sugars are absorbed very fast, and it's best to use them judiciously.
Okay. Okay, that was great. Thank you. And then one last question for today. The other food item that I was going to ask you about, which again gets debated a lot, is ghee, and how much of ghee. I mean, now, of course, there's a whole new wave where, even leading doctors and, lifestyle coaches and all of them kind of are recommending ghee, going back to the basics of India, clarified butter. And then again, there's still one school of thought that again can't, like, no, it's not.
Like I just told you, the first thing I want this person who had such low vitamin deficiency was please eat half to 1 teaspoon ghee every day with your vitamin D supplement, because otherwise it's not going to be absorbed. Vitamin
right.
D, fat is a vitamin. So you rather do the good fats. And though I'm quite patriotic when it comes to my traditional food and cuisine, and I love my cold pressed coconut oil. Like I tell everybody, the cold pressed till oil, mustard oil, these are the best. You don't really need to do the canola oil or anything fancy. But I also am a big fan of extra virgin olive oil because there's no comparison to extra virgin, though it may be from Italy and Spain, but it is a different league. So, it's like saying, should I eat an apple when I have a craving to eat cake? I'm sorry, cake is cake, apple is apple. When you get a craving to eat cake. So it's as that. So as much as I'm patriotic towards my own country's oils, which I just named, extra virgin olive oil has its own unique place. And I think every person must use the good fats, MUFA, monounsaturated fatty acids. Oleic acids come from olive oil. So there's no replacement to olive oil. And even if we're Indians, we must use some bit of extra virgin olive oil as a salad dressing or in hummus, in tahini. It could be on anything, on avocado. Okay. So ghee is a must. And traditionally, we ate ghee all the time. But having said that, it's also important to understand what should be the amount of ghee one should eat. It should be like dietitian Gita said, eat ghee, and you're eating like 100 grams a day.
Put it
So,
in everything.
yeah, but ghee is good. It has, definitely Ayurvedic approach too, right? They always said to stop the agni. They always said start with a bit of ghee and rice initially. That is
Correct.
what our traditional outlook was.
Yeah,
So,
even the
but it is
Panchakarma
saturated.
diet has.
So it's a saturated fat, meaning that 7% of our full calorie intake should be from saturated fats like cold pressed coconut oil, ghee, and butter. So it also depends on who needs to take ghee, unless and until you have a heart issue, meaning that you have atherosclerosis, blockage of artery walls, you're too old, you have heart issues, lipids are off, dyslipidemia.
Mm,
Then you have to really take care of your cholesterol and your saturated fats because they're all interconnected. Meaning that if you are a non-vegetarian guy, you eat red meat, you eat a lot of egg yolks, you eat a lot of seafood like prawn, and then you're also doing a whole lot of coconut oil and then the
mm.
ghee. So you have to look at the entire holistic picture of what is the entire total intake. For a vegetarian who is a measly person who hardly eats even half to 1 teaspoon ghee is quite okay. But somebody
Right.
who has other reasons to take care. So, like I said, the basic message I want to convey is even for somebody who consumes all the other foods, half teaspoon is still safe to take every day.
Okay. Okay.
Children eat more than that. Children, I know people who eat 2, 3 teaspoons in one meal. But young children
Yeah, they
can
can
burn it
afford
off.
to because they burn it off so easily, right? And they are not thinking about it. So
Like
that's
currently
so
now the
true.
conjugated, oh sorry, the conjugated linoleic acid, and it has got some heart healthy properties also because the good fats,
Mm.
sorry, saturated fats like ghee, they increase the good cholesterol, HDL, high density lipoprotein, but they also increase the bad cholesterol, LDL, equally. So that's why we want to take
Okay.
we want to take a good, stand over how much would you need, and that depends again on age and medical issues and so many other things.
Wow. So I think my big takeaway obviously is one that, everything is in context. So obviously whether you are, I mean, as a girl, depending on what age group you are in, what kind of lifestyle you're leading, what kind of physical, training, whether it's for a particular sport or generally just to maintain a lifestyle. I think the context and the kind of lifestyle you lead is very, very important to be able to clearly kind of guide you saying 1, 2, 3, 4 things are important for you. So context and your own needs are one important. And two, what I also hear you, say it in different ways again and again is the fact that nothing can be overdone in extreme because it will have its downfall, right? You can work towards a particular goal and maybe for a short period of time, especially for athletes, like you said, during their pre-training, there may be a particular goal that they have to achieve either in terms of weight or a certain kind of mobility, and so for a short period of time maybe an extreme, again under guidance of a nutritionist like yourself, is okay, but long term nothing extreme kind of works. It has to be a little more, it has to be more kind of consistent and balanced. So what are your parting thoughts, Geeta? Because I mean, literally, there's so much that you shared. So I think I know for one that I'm definitely going to come back to this session. And for those of you who are watching right now, we will be saving this, video recording on the Engine Instagram handle. So if you want to come back, revisit some of the questions or doubts that you have, please do so. But Geeta, parting thoughts, please, for all the young girls.
Yeah, like you already summarized, I think enjoy life. No need to go the other extreme. In fact, somebody I was just interacting with was eating so less, thinking it's good for weight loss and fat loss, that you don't realize that you are actually slowing down your metabolic rate. So extremes are unnecessary and it's too harsh. So I think we're
Mm.
so fortunate that we are still alive, and I think that's just enjoying the small mercies of life and finding small little moments. So yeah, life is quite trivial and it's been so uncertain considering 2.5 years we've gone through pandemic. So I have really made a conscious effort in some ways, the way I am perceiving things. So just enjoy life and be flexible, adapt. I think that's what we really need.
So true. So absolutely true. Thank you so much, Geeta, for your time on the weekend. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to request you to do many more sessions with us. So I'm going to be, kind of troubling you for more guidance and more knowledge from time to time. But thank you so much for giving your time to ENGN.
Pleasure, and I hope that it really helps everybody who's here tuned in, and also who's going to come back to hearing this. Thank you for everybody who joined us today.
Thank you.